gone directly to more than 100,000 families, and the International Relief Association itself has sponsored over 1,000 families by delivering much-needed medical and food supplies. During the Islamic month of fasting, Ramadan, over 520 tons of rice alone, which is sufficient to provide more than 3 million meals, was distributed to the already starving people of Iraq. With your contributions, IRA was able to provide more than $3 million worth of medicines. You can help these innocent people live another day. You can be the person responsible for restoring an infant back to health, for filling a baby's stomach, for reaffirming a mother's love and a father's faith in humanity, for bringing a smile to a child's face, a smile of contentment and peace. The International Relief Association is here to help. Please send your tax-deductible donations, however small, to the International Relief Association, and together we can preserve innocence around the world.
More than 500,000 children have died in the past 5 years as a result of the U.S.-UN sanctions against Iraq. The sanctions attack the most vulnerable, preventing food and life-giving medicines from reaching children, the chronically ill, and the aged. Disease runs rampant and there is no way to treat it. The water is contaminated. The sanctions preserve the effects of the devastating bombing raids that destroyed water and sewage pipes, water purification, and pharmaceutical plants. The radioactive legacy left by the depleted uranium-tipped warheads that rained down on Iraq during the Gulf War has just begun to emerge as new cases of leukemia, cancer, and birth defects appear, and there is no possibility of treating them. With a few exceptions, the media has been silent. The Food and Agricultural Organization studies have been largely ignored. Sanctions have become the new silent weapon of mass destruction wielded by the rich and powerful, more deadly than the neutron bomb.
It's unbelievable that the whole world wouldn't know and be constantly in pain over the fact that so many people are dying from the sanctions. I mean, imagine more than 575,000 children killed, murdered, if you will, because it was deliberate and the consequences were known by sanctions, and yet very, very few people are aware of it. I talk around the country pretty frequently, and people don't know it. And now, why don't they know it? They don't know it because the media, which has this stunning capacity to inform, I mean, there's never been anything like it in history. People can know almost simultaneously anything. And yet this huge American population and huge world population are unaware of this terrible tragedy that's occurring in Iraq and continuing to this day. And the reason is the media doesn't want them to know. Throughout the assault on Iraq, it was like a continuing commercial, 24 hours a day, for weapons systems, for militarism, for U.S. heroism, for Iraqi evil, the demonization of Saddam Hussein was a major effort of the media. And it engaged in absolute and known falsehood. Now, compare that with, I mean, tens of thousands of infant deaths in Iraq in the sanctions, and not a mumbling word. The media says nothing about it. It knows it's happening. It knows we're doing it. When we saw the broken incubators pushed against the wall that couldn't be worked, we saw the operating incubators with 2 or 3 infants in there because they got as many in as they could to keep as many alive as they could. And we know how many never got to the incubator. They died before they got to the incubator. They died from bad water. They died from malnourishment in the mother. They died from undersized birth, and they just couldn't cope with the challenge of life at the beginning. They died from no medicine, simple baby medicine that would have saved them. They died because the United States government intended that they die. That was the purpose of the sanctions, to crush that government and people for a generation or more, and the media knows it, and the media is the propaganda organ. Look at it. Who owns the media? It's the major corporations. How close are they to the military-industrial complex? They're intimately intertwined. I mean, GE is always first or second among all military suppliers, and who are their advertisers? And they're dependent on the advertisers. And who are their friends? I mean, who do the news readers hobnob with? The political celebrities. Whose stories do they advance? They are actually the same people control the media that control the military. It's corporate wealth and private wealth in the United States that governs this plutocracy.
In February 1996, I went with former Attorney General Ramsey Clark on his 5th trip to Iraq to document the effects of the sanctions on the Iraqi people. We visited 10 hospitals, a school, a water purification system, a pharmaceutical plant, and the neighborhoods most affected by the sanctions. We focused primarily on the effects of the sanctions on the children. What is most striking at first is Iraq's isolation. There is no air travel permitted into or inside Iraq. The only open border is the Jordanian border, which means to enter Iraq, you must fly to Amman, Jordan, and then drive to the Iraqi border. At average speed, it takes at least 16 hours. For Iraqi citizens trying to get out of the country, even to get medical care, the trip is difficult and hazardous. On first entering Baghdad, the effects of the sanctions are not apparent. Baghdad is a very modern city. However, the problems became obvious once we began a closer look.
This baby, he is in need of plastic surgery to regain his face. Admitted twice to another hospital in incubator. Actually, I am afraid of from this incubator after the baby discharged from here.
Now, for a long time they couldn't get any fluorescent lights, and they still have to see here.
Yeah.
You should have 6 tubes in here, and they've got 1.
One creative doctor in Saddam City Hospital constructed his own incubator made from a baby's bed and plastic sheeting.
A kind of incubator.
You need to be an inventor and a manufacturer as well as a doctor.
That's how it goes here.
Iraq, before the Gulf War, had the best medical care in the Near East. The hospitals were the best equipped. Healthcare was free to all. The physicians were well trained. Now they watch helplessly as the death toll rises.
Sometimes the mortalities are high. But as long as I've been here, I've seen patients die, I've seen patients live. But usually, we bring them here with low hopes. With low hopes. Because, for example, the other day, a case with cerebrovascular accident, bleeding in the brain. We know there is bleeding, but we don't know where at the site, how much is bleeding. We cannot control it. We cannot convince the patient to ship to other hospital. The patient kept staring at us. We kept staring at him back. He died. We know he is bleeding, clinically. But where the site, how much bleeding, the vital signs were deteriorating hour by hour. Please go to another hospital, which we are convinced might also do not know better than us. But let's give them a chance, yeah.
Does your ambulance work?
No.
My dear friends, what's going on in Iraq is beyond the description of anyone. There is no word to describe it. There is no one who could really document it. You might document some statistics, true, and you might disagree on some decimal here and there. But there are other things which cannot be documented. The human degradation in Iraq, the human humiliation in Iraq, the human feelings which push way too hard cannot be documented.
You know, there is a recent report issued by the WFP World Food Program. They say that there are 4 million Iraqis at risk on the verge of death from starvation. Among those are 2.5 million children and women.
Yeah.
For the first 2 years, the effect was not so severe because we have reserve of everything. As that is being depleted, you know, the effect started to get worse and worse. People started to sell their belongings. They sold even the doors of their house. In summer they sell the blankets thinking that sanction might be end before winter comes. They sold the carpets, they sold everything. The immunity due to the malnourishment has been depleted also. So any ailment would affect them strongly because there is a cumulative effect. So unfortunately, if sanction would continue, then the situation will be much more, and I regard that from the humanitarian point of view as a massacre to the population of Iraq. It is not a sanction, it is in fact a massacre.
It's genocide.
It's a genocide.
Now emerging in greater numbers are children with leukemia. Their condition has been attributed to the use of missiles tipped with depleted uranium by U.S. forces. The tips were called silver bullets by our armed forces, and they were designed to have greater penetrating power through defensive armor.
Increased number of leukemias, skin cancer, and other Hodgkin's diseases in the southern part of Iraq, in the areas where it was affected by the depleted uranium. In addition, that all the water purification systems and the sewers were bombed by the Allied forces, and the environment is being polluted. So in addition to the nutritional, in addition to the depleted immunity, the polluted environment, water supply, etc., all these has aggravated the situation.
We have noticed there is a change in pattern of disease in this governorate in the city. Definitely, our figures show that there is an increase in cases of malignancy, cancers, leukemias, and also there is an increase in the congenital deformities or the new deliveries, the infants.
Is that still increasing, or is that going down?
No, it's increasing more and more.
More and more. You know that the U.S. was using depleted uranium rockets. There were about 65,000 altogether, according to the Pentagon, the Department of Defense.
This is newly diagnosed leukemia. She got many relapses because we haven't drugs. I blame this radiation to cause this disease. So she will bleed, I think, till the